Hello, everyone. This is Ivan Misner, and this is Ask Ivan Live, the live Ask Ivan event. And I am on early. Don't tell anybody. My staff doesn't know. I haven't told anybody I'm going to be here early. I am running with scissors. I got on early just to let you know that we're going to be starting officially in a couple of minutes, but I'm going to stay on with you and I want to recognize people as they jump on board. If you are coming in, we'll get started in just a few minutes. If you're watching this recording, you can fast forward about 4 minutes and we'll be really starting the Ask Ivan Live in just maybe 3-4 minutes at the most. Um, it is great to do this again. It's been a little while since I have been on an Ask Ivan, but I love doing these. These are my passion. I see we have people from many, many places here. Peter and Karen. Tell me where you're from. Ray from Manila. Um, and then we've got, I saw Swanky. Where's from Swanky? Southwest Ohio and Northern Kentucky region. I love the name Swanky. And that's Barb. And we have people from India. Don't be mad at me if I mispronounce your name. Vijayaraj, and Ray, Eric. Let's see, Fred. We've got Ram, Shaitan, Deepak, Lisa, Ethan. Ethan, just so you know, I'm going to be a grandfather. And my grandson's name is going to be Ethan. We know it's a boy. And my daughter and son-in-law are naming him Ethan. And you can tell people it's after you if you want. I don't know. We're such good buds that my daughter named him after you. So I've already gone out. No, we haven't started yet. We're going to get started in a couple of minutes. So I've already gone out since this is my first grandchild. And I bought some onesies, for babies. They'd say, "Don't make me call grandpa." I love that. I think that's hysterical. And then I've got one that said, "My dad knows a lot, but my grandpa knows everything." And I think the last one was, "I have a crazy grandpa, and I'm not afraid to use him." So those are some of the onesies that I got. Little Ethan, who's expected to join the world in late December, early January. This is the Ask Ivan Live. I'm going to get started in about 1 minute. In the meantime, if you're just jumping in on this, if you're watching the video, you can fast forward a little bit. Just give me a minute for those of you who are coming on. I want as many people on as possible. We've got Vietnam, Kenya, Malaysia, Cambodia, Manila. We've got, here's more from India, lots from India. I have more followers from India than I do the United States, which I think is just amazing. Milan, Italy, fantastic. And Chennai, can we log this as CEU points? Absolutely. Ray asks that. You can log these as CEU points. And in just a moment, you can start putting in questions. And I've got, oh, wow, what a great turnout. I can't even begin. Dubai, Philippines, so many of you. This is really fantastic. Thanks for all coming today. And as I do these in the future, please tell your BNI members and friends to come. I'm happy to answer any question you have. The only dumb question is the unasked question. Here's the UK. UK, I think, just celebrated their 25th anniversary in BNI. That's really, really impressive. So I'm going to start taking questions in just a minute, but before I do, I always open my Ask Ivan live Ask Ivans with just a few comments on some topic. And so today's topic is leadership. And it's leadership because I've just been asked to teach at Concordia University. I really like Concordia. I've just been asked to teach in the MBA program a course on leadership. And I just started this week. It was a blast. It's been I don't know, 16, 17 years since I taught at university. I taught for about 16 years. So it's been a long time. I highly recommend John Maxwell's book, The 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership. This happens to be the workbook, but the actual book looks very much the same. The 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership. John Maxwell is, without a doubt, the world's leading expert on this topic. If you are a BNI member and you have not seen the videos that I have done with John on Business Builders, go to Business Builders, look for the videos. I've done 18 videos with John Maxwell. They're all short, 2 minutes to I think the longest is maybe 6 minutes. So they're all reasonably short. And if you have a chance, go check out those videos. They're all about leadership and BNI. And so I wanted to share just a couple of things that John shared with me on those videos and in his book. And then I'm going to open it up for your questions. So if you have questions, start putting the questions in the chat box. Dana will send me the questions. And by the way, I want to thank Dana. Everybody needs a Dana. Dana is my executive assistant. She's fantastic. I love you, Dana. You do a great job for me. She will be taking some of the questions and putting them in Skype for me so I can see your questions. And she's a massive amount of help. I also want to thank the Scion team, SCION. The Scion team, they told me how to do this. The teenagers of Facebook keep changing Facebook Live. And so they walked me through it about a half an hour ago. And they're fantastic. I recommend them for social media. And of course, we're involved in BNI. So back to leadership. One of the videos that we did with John is self-leadership video. And he says something really interesting. He said, a young man came to him once and said, I'm a student. I don't have anyone to lead. And John said, well, start with yourself. And that's really very true. If you wouldn't follow yourself, who else would follow you? It's very important to walk the talk, to do the things that leaders should in fact do. And I couldn't agree with that more. You begin with yourself as a leader, and if you have the leadership skills, you will become a leader. And that's in the video. I think it's video number 5, self-leadership video. Well, something else that John says, which I think is really powerful, is that it's not the position that makes the leader; it's the leader that makes the position. And again, I completely agree with that. It's the leader that makes the position. I've seen different people in the same role have completely different results because the person made the position. One or two more other things I want to talk about with leadership, just a few leadership nuggets, and then I'm going to open it up for questions. I love this quote from John. I think it's probably one of his most powerful, and that is that leadership is about influence. It's the ability to obtain followers. And when the leader lacks confidence, the followers lack commitment. When the leader lacks confidence, the follower lacks commitment. True, very, very true. And look, I understand that sometimes, when I started BNI, I was 28 years old. I maybe wasn't as confident as I could have been, but I realized I had to method act my way through the process. And the idea of fake it till you make it has some truth to it. The last two things I want to talk about with leadership, and then we're going to open it up for all your questions. And I see some questions coming in now. Law number 2 out of John's 21 irrefutable laws of leadership. Law number 2 is that the true measure of leadership is influence, nothing more, nothing less. That when you are able to influence, guide, coach people in a particular direction, that is one of the most important things to know about leadership. And here's one of my quotes for you. And maybe Dana later today can find it and put it up on Facebook later today after this video plays for a while. Leadership is not about managing and complying. It's about mobilizing and inspiring. Really believe this. Leadership is not about managing and complying. That's what management is about. Leadership is about mobilizing and inspiring. If you can inspire people, they will mobilize and they will do amazing things for you. I know that. I've seen that throughout my entire career. Okay, that's it. That's my whole speech. Now I will answer whatever questions you have. And I see that there are some questions that have already been sent in. from all of you. Dana is sending them to me, and she says, Ravi asks, how do you complete meetings on time for a 100-member chapter? Well, look, when you get to a 100-member chapter, you can't do the meetings in an hour and a half. Almost all chapters that have over 80 members do have a longer meeting. You need to talk to your executive director. We have material that's been developed for really, really large chapters so that you can hold the meeting in a reasonable amount of time, but you can't hold a meeting in the same amount of time for a 40-member chapter as you do a 100-member chapter. So my advice to you, Ravi, is talk to your executive director or your managing director, or your regional director, talk to them immediately and get information on the different format. And it's a different format is just a longer format. And there is one other thing. Many chapters that have 100 members don't have a meal during the meeting. They may do it after the meeting, but you got to talk to your local director. This is something that they need to help you with. Okay, let's see, a comment. I hope that helps a little. Talk to your director. Howard Sobakov says he's reading the 21 Laws of Leadership now. Yes, it's a great book. Anshu says, my question is that we read your blogs every day. Wow, thank you. I appreciate that. That's fantastic. I've been blogging, by the way, since 2007. So I have 15 years of blogs up there twice a week since 2007. Anshu says, my question is, I read your blogs every day, but did I write any poetry? No. No, I'm not a poet. I'm not a poet, and I know it. It's a skill that I don't have. I'll tell you something though. So here's something almost nobody knows. Okay, this is just between us. I have written a science fiction short story, and you can get it on Amazon. I think you can get it on Amazon anywhere in the world. It is a Kindle version book. It's not a print. It's because it's not a book. It's very short. You can read it in 10 minutes. And if you don't have Kindle, it's okay. You can get a Kindle app. They're free on your phone. Download a Kindle app, and you can get the book. I think in US dollars, it's 99 cents. And I misspoke. It's not a book. It's a short story. The short story is called Imprint. 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 A short story. And it was an idea that my late wife and I had a number of years ago. And after she passed away, I decided to finish this short story that she and I had kind of talked about. And so it's really meaningful that I completed that after Elizabeth passed away. So check it out. Imprint. It was a bestseller on Amazon. So I am a best-selling science fiction short story writer, but no poetry. And if you pick up a digital copy of Imprint, post a message. I read most of the reviews that go up, and so I'd love to read your review. If you hate it, don't review it, please. Okay, let's see the next. Okay, I got to start doing this. Kamalika, outline the role of an education coordinator. You are one now. Okay, I love the role of the education coordinator. If I were in a chapter, I would volunteer to be the education coordinator. I think it's one of the most important roles that you can have in a chapter. And one of the first things I would do as an education coordinator is go through and look in all the podcasts, bnipodcast.com, and do a search on education coordinator, because I talk in there about the power of an education coordinator. And Dana, maybe you can find, there's a podcast that I did about an education coordinator that was finding that their members weren't listening to the podcast. They weren't reading my blogs. They just were not engaged. And if you could post that podcast, and I'll describe it real quickly here. They just weren't engaged. And so what he did was he went to his chapter and he said, he was new education coordinator, but it doesn't matter if you're new or not. You can do this anytime. He said, I've been thinking about the presentations, the education minutes I'm doing. And I wanted to ask you guys, do you want me to do a lecture where I talk about a particular topic? You help me pick the topics and I talk about that topic. Or do you want to have a dialogue? Well, he knew the answer. these are all entrepreneurs. They want to do a dialogue. No, nobody wants a lecture. They want a dialogue. And so he knew that was what they'd say. And they did. They said, oh, yeah, a dialogue. We want a dialogue. And so he said, fantastic. That's what I was hoping you would say is a dialogue, because I think that can be way more powerful for adult learning. He said, but there's one caveat. In order to have an effective dialogue on the topic, you have to do the reading. If you don't do the reading or you don't listen to the podcast, you can't talk. But if you've done the reading, and I'll assign it a week in advance, or you've listened to the podcast, then you can talk. And you have to start the conversation by saying, well, when Ivan was talking about this on the podcast, or when Ivan's guest on the podcast said this, or here, I see it. There's one of them right there, Dana. Thank you very much. Episode 777. That might be the one we're talking about. I'm not sure. But anyway, he said, you have to open your conversation with, Ivan's blog said such and such. I agree. I disagree, whatever. You have to show that you read it in order to speak. He said, I went from having a chapter that was not engaged in education to having an overwhelming number of members engaged in education. And that's really important. You all have to be working off the same playbook. You have to have the same information if you want to all go in the same direction. And so I think education coordinator is the best role, especially if you've got some content. And by the way, I mean, if you have some experience, by the way, you want to be a better education, you want to be better at BNI, become the education coordinator or become a mentor. One of the things that I learned is that when I mentor somebody, I get better at what I do. Years ago, and this is in a book, I don't have the book here, maybe Dana can post a link, called The Networking Mentor, and it's about a BNI chapter. And this is still with the education coordinator. It's about a BNI chapter and how this one person became a mentor. And when he became the mentor, well, I take it back. It tells in the story about a person who coached his son's chess club. By the way, this is a true story. It's me. I coached my son's chess club. They were all 10-year-olds. And one day I was playing an adult, and he said, wow, what are you doing, man? Your game's getting better. I said, I'm coaching 10-year-olds. And he's like, no, really, what are you doing? I'm like, I'm coaching 10-year-olds. And he said, seriously? I said, yeah, because when you coach somebody, when you mentor somebody, when you educate somebody, you get better as well. My chess game improved when I coached 10-year-olds. Your business will improve. Your networking will improve if you're the education coordinator. I hope I gave you some good ideas there. Camille says, Ivan, 37 years and running. How was BNI? Oh yeah, BNI. Okay. BNI's 37 years and running. How has BNI changed my leadership style over the years? Wow, that's an insightful question. Camille, I've never been asked that question. I think that as my eyesight goes, my insight grows. See me have to use my glasses. As my eyesight goes, my insight grows. And experience has helped. It's also been a factor of giving me more confidence in how to deal with certain situations because I've seen many of them before. And so I think I am a little less quick to react, not always, but a little bit less fast in terms of reacting and a little more patient. And that might be because I have gray hair and I've been around a long time. Jack Canfield's a good friend of mine, Chicken Soup for the Soul, Success Principles. And I was saying to Jack, it was a couple of years ago, I was saying, Jack, I find myself as I get older, I'm more patient. I was never a real patient person. I find myself real patient. Jack says, Ivan, you're getting old. Your testosterone goes down. That's why grandpas are always so nice and so friendly, because they've lost a lot of their testosterone. So maybe it's just that. I don't know. I'd like to think it's maybe a little bit of experience as well. Great question. I hope that answers your question. Anshu of course, Anshu, you're the author of Knowledgepreneur. That's the latest book for for BNI. Anshu put it together in Hindi and English. And so I think we have done a little promotion on it. Yeah, I think we have, Dana. If we have, maybe you can put that link. If we haven't done promotion on it yet, as soon as possible, we'll get that out. But I think we've done some promotion on it already. The Knowledgepreneur is taking a lot of my best blogs and translating them into Hindi. And the book is available primarily in India at this point. I don't know if it'll be expanded beyond that. I'm sorry if I just gave misinformation, but I'm sure you can let Dana know. Snehal, Snehal, who's a top fan on Facebook. I love the top fans on Facebook. Thank you. What three things do all networking groups need? I think there's many things that they need, and those three things differ from group to group. Some groups need different three things than other groups, but in general, I would say they need to make sure that all their members go through member success program training. You just have to do it. It's like starting a job with no orientation. You want to make sure that all of your members go through member success program training, which means you need to set expectations. When the visitors come in and when somebody submits an application, you say, we're willing to accept your application, but there are a couple of conditions. One is that you attend member success program training. And I think that's really important because, starting a job with no orientation is a bad idea. Starting a role in a networking organization without an orientation, a thorough one, is a bad idea. I think the second thing is to really focus on one-to-ones. One-to-ones in a chapter are really important. There's a podcast that I did on it, and Dana, I know you know where that podcast is. You can link it, where we found a direct and dramatic linear correlation between doing one-to-ones and giving referrals. There was a study done in Europe at a university, and they found that people who do one-to-one a month compared to people who do 4 one-to-ones a month. So 1 a month versus 1 a week. The people who do 4 one-to-ones a month give twice as many referrals as the people who only do 1 one-to-one a month. Here's the beautiful thing. They receive twice as many referrals as the people who do 1 one-to-one a month. I mean, come on, think about it. If I said, I can give you one technique that will double the number of referrals you get over time, would you do it? Of course you would. So do it. 4 one-to-ones a month. And it doesn't happen overnight. It takes time. Remember, networking's a marathon, not a sprint. It takes time. But when you do that, we found that people who do 4 give twice as many referrals and they receive twice as many referrals. That would be one of the things that I think is really, really important. And I would say that the third thing in general is accountability in the chapter. One of the strengths of a BNI chapter is that most of the members are friends. One of the weaknesses of a BNI chapter is that most of the members are friends. And friends don't like to hold friends accountable. But this is not a friendship organization. This is a referral organization. And we want people to be friends, but you also have to have accountability. So those are the 3 things that I think really apply to almost all chapters. Different chapters do have some other things that they may need. Okay, question. On the BNI Global Convention in November, how can we participate in the activities as virtual attendees? Oh, I love the question. The answer is that virtual attendees will receive information on how to access and participate the global convention events. It is, Dana's going to put a link in here if she hasn't already. And Dana, maybe you could put in a link now and put in a link at the end. The global convention's amazing. If you can't be there in person, you gotta go virtual. It's incredible. When I go to a global convention, I am humbled by what BNI has become. I see flags from all 76 countries that BNI is in. There's different languages and there's different people from all over the world. And it's kind of like going to a United Nations meeting where all the countries love each other. And it's fantastic. If you can't be there in person, it's in Singapore. It's next month. you got to go virtual and check it out. It really is amazing. Okay. And yep, Dana will post the link. So next question. Any new ideas for Power Team meetings for boosting members? This comes from Chennai, India. And there's a recent BNI podcast number 775 with Tom Fleming, where he talks about the use of Power Teams. Power Teams are really powerful in a chapter, and they substantially increase the amount of referrals. I see Dana just put in the events. You can go to the Global Convention 2022 virtually and just click on that link and you'll be able to sign up for it. Power teams are really important in a chapter. Chapters that have really strong power teams generate a lot more referrals. It's one of the reasons why, I say the size of a chapter really does make a difference in the amount of business that's generated. And one of the reasons for that is power teams. That if you have a chapter that has more power teams, you're going to pass disproportionately more referrals. And here's why. A power team, let's say it's what I call the wedding mafia. It's the the caterer, the florist, the photographer, the travel agent, the jeweler. Once they bring you in for the wedding, they don't let you out, and they all support each other and help each other. So one person can be 5 referrals. So one person who's getting married, when they see that BNI member, and that BNI member is a florist, and that florist recommends the photographer, and they recommend the event planner, and they recommend 2 or 3 other people that are in their power team in a chapter. And a power team, for those of you who don't know, are part of a contact sphere, which is a group of business professionals who have a symbiotic relationship. They're in compatible, non-competitive professions. They work best with each other. When a chapter has a lot of power teams filled, their referrals go up disproportionately. And they go up disproportionately because that one referral can become really 5 referrals within a chapter. So I'd really work on power teams, episode 775. I'd also take a look at, I'd also do a search on BNI Podcast. When you go to BNI Podcast, there's a search button. And one of the reasons we put in transcripts of the podcast is so you can find topics. So put in the topic power teams, and you'll find a lot of podcasts that I've done about power teams over the years. Okay, next question. Do I have any insight? This comes from, I think it's Cacao, CACO. Do I have any insight into the difference between online and in-person chapters? Yeah, now look, I could be wrong about these numbers. These are about a month old, but let me tell you where we stand as an organization. And these numbers could be slightly off, but roughly 68% of our chapters have gone back to meeting in person. Roughly 16% are now meeting completely online, 100%. And roughly 16% are meeting as a hybrid. And by hybrid, we have one system of hybrid, and that's meeting in person once a month and meeting online 3 times a month. So that's where the organization has gone back to. And anyone who's been around in BNI for a couple of years, that we flipped from almost 10,000 groups in person to 10,000 groups online, literally within weeks throughout every country in the world. And I think it saved the organization, but not only that, it saved, I believe, tens of thousands of businesses, because there are many, many businesses that survived and even thrived during COVID because we made that transition. And by the way, that transition was predictable, not COVID, although our CEO, Graham Weimiller, definitely, he saw this coming and thought it would be far worse than I did. But in 2018, I wrote an article, and I wrote an article for Entrepreneur that basically said the future of face-to-face is online. And Dana, I don't know if that's hidden behind a wall with Entrepreneur, but I think I've published it, or you put it up for me on my blog. You're welcome to post this. And it basically says the future of networking is going to be online. And the reason for that is 3D technology, mixed reality technology, holographic imaging. I said, within 10 years, and I said this about 4 years ago, within 10 years, this is going to be a much more commonplace thing. COVID expedited that process. But I still think that, within 6 to 8 years, we're going to see more and more online meetings because the technology is becoming much more impressive. I just saw something yesterday being developed by, I think it was Microsoft, that is totally holographic. And I think that's really the future of networking in the long run. Okay, let's see. Where are we? Abigail. Abigail says, for the past 37 years, what's your secret to keep inspiring your leaders in the organization? Um, I've taken on a different role over the years. For the first 30 years, myself and Norm Dominguez, we ran the company. 30 years is a long time to run the company. I was basically King Arthur leading the charge for some 30 years. I've reinvented myself from King Arthur to Colonel Sanders, where I'm more of the spokesman for education, the educational content of BNI. I see Dana just put up the entrepreneur.com article. And so I think I have stayed inspired about what I do, passionate about what I do, because I've been able to redefine myself, reinvent myself. I think an entrepreneur is either working in their flame or working in their wax. And when they're working in their flame, they're on fire. They're excited. They love what they do. And you can hear it in their voice. You can see it in the way they act. When they're working in their wax, it just takes all their energy away. And you can hear that in their voice, and you can see that in the way they react. And so for me, it's being able to reinvent myself to stay in my flame. And my goal, to answer your question, Abigail, directly, is I want to inspire people. I want to inspire people who inspire other people. And that's my flame. And that's what I try to do. And that's why I do events like this, because I really love to pour into people to answer questions that might help them in business from my experience, to help them learn from it. I hope that answers your question. Simon, in the past 12 months, what's the smallest change you've made that's had the biggest positive result? Wow. Simon, these are a couple of questions that I've not been asked before. Yeah, I don't know if this qualifies, but for 10 years, I was diagnosed with cancer 10 years ago. I took a holistic approach to dealing with it. And so I finally went in and did a procedure called CyberKnife. And it's, you'd think, well, that's not small. It's kind of small in the sense that, you go in, you lay down on this medical bed, and they have this giant machine that comes over and goes click, 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 click. And you don't feel anything. And it's like voodoo almost. It's like, what are they doing? But at the end of 5 sessions, the doctor said, everything looks great. I'll see you in 6 months. And so it was such a simple thing to do. It was called CyberKnife. Such a simple thing to do from my perspective, not from the doctor's perspective, I'm sure, that I think has had the biggest positive result. I'll know, by the way, by December, I go back in for some tests and see if all is good. I was told 10 years ago I had 6 months to get surgery, and instead I opted to do a holistic approach, which enabled me to wait long enough where what I did just a few months ago was experimental 10 years ago, and it's very common today. I hope that answers your question. It was a good one. Any suggestions for an architect in India? Yeah, look, an architect is one of the more difficult professions to get referrals for. You definitely need a power team. And so you want to have some of the trades in there. You want a general contractor. You want to bring into the chapter, maybe have an electrician, people that are in the general trades, a plumber, because these people are in contact with people who need help building things, even an attorney, a real estate agent who is helping someone buy property, but they want to add to the property. and an architect fits within that kind of power team. The other thing I would consider, and maybe Dana, you can find the article that I did, an entrepreneur, and I think it's also on my blog, referrals for the difficult to refer business. And literally 38 years ago, I used this technique to get business. I was a management consultant. And so I used this technique to get business, to get referrals. And it was doing speaking engagements at Rotary Alliance Kiwanis clubs. And from those speaking engagements, I had a technique in there that helped to get referrals. And so talking to other successful business professionals helped me get referrals. So those are the two things that I would urge you to do. And the power team is probably even more important. Hope that helps. Jane asks, what is the rights on our 30-second commercial, 30-second presentation? Can we say whatever we want or should not? Jane, you should never say whatever you want. I mean, I talk to people sometimes, and there are a lot of things I'd like to say that I don't. Let's talk about what the purpose of your weekly presentation is. The purpose is to educate people on how to refer you. So my advice is you should say whatever teaches people how to refer you. Remember, you're not trying to close a sale in your weekly presentation. You're trying to train a sales force. You're trying to teach people how to refer you effectively. And so, Dana, maybe you can find a couple of podcasts. One of them is there's several on how to do a good weekly presentation, but there's a couple in particular, one about reticular activating system. I think it's called The Language of Referrals. And so The Language of Referrals is a great podcast to listen to. These are the kinds of things that you want to do. The Language of Referrals, by the way, begins with these phrases: I can't, I need, I want, I don't know. So what you do is at a meeting, over several weeks, you tell people, if someone starts with the phrase, I don't know how, and then it applies to your profession, tell them, listen for that. That's a referral for me. Or I can't, for example, I can't get this computer to work. Well, that's a referral for the computer guy. I just don't know how to do this accounting. I can't get my books straight. That's a referral for the bookkeeper or CPA or accountant in a chapter. So you listen for the language of referrals. I can't, I need, I want, I don't know. So Jane, you can't say whatever you want, but you should say things that educate your members. And I'm kind of getting a gut feeling here that you want to say some stuff that a chapter or a director is saying don't say. Have another conversation with them. There's probably a good reason for it. Maybe I'm reading it wrong. Let me make sure. I think it's Kyna, Kyna. Love this. Oh, I love you. Thank you very much. What's the secret to a successful group? Okay, you want the one secret? Ready? There is no one secret. It's always a recipe. Always. There's a number of things that makes a successful group. I would say that recipe begins with engagement. You have a chapter that is engaged in the program. You don't have a lot of members that are minnows, M-I-N-O, minnows, members in name only. They just take up space and they're not contributing. What you want are members that are highly engaged in the process, that are there, really believing in Givers Gain and wanting to support and help each other. I think that's one of the most important things to look for. And so I know I've got a podcast. This isn't quite your question, but it will help, I think, with the question. And that is, I have a podcast called Addition by Subtraction. I would recommend that you listen to that Addition by Subtraction podcast, because it's one of the ways that we talk about. You want to build a chapter. Sometimes you got to cut it back. And who do you cut back? You cut back the minnows, the members in name only. And I talk about how to do that effectively in there. That's a really good question. Thank you very much for asking that. Okay. And I'm glad you love this. Jenya, hello from Mongolia. Oh, wow. Awesome. I don't think I've ever had a question from someone in Mongolia. BNI. Do big business owners have better opportunities to succeed than small business owners? Does business prestige matter? Wow. Well, look, big business owners generally started as small business owners. Um, I mean, when I started BNI, it was in my house. It was in my garage. BNI headquarters was in my garage and in a room above my garage. So, we now have over 10,800 groups in more than 76 countries around the world. The big businesses started as small businesses. And so I'm not sure you can compare whether they have more opportunity than the small. I would guess that as you grow, you get more and more opportunities. Certainly, my opportunities in many ways grew as my business grew. But you're kind of comparing apples and oranges. I would just focus on building your business. And remember, for me, I tell people I was a 20-year overnight success. It took me 20 years to build what I consider to be a successful business, a reasonably large business. So it takes time. It takes time. Give yourself some grace and look for opportunities and recognize a concept I call the butterfly effect of networking. And that is that when you meet somebody, even if you don't think they're more successful than you like them, build a relationship with them, they're going to refer you to somebody else, and build a relationship with them, and they're going to refer you to somebody else. Build a relationship with them, and they're going to refer you to somebody else. Maybe, Dana, if you can find my butterfly effect article, and I think I may even have a video on it, that would be of value. The last thing that you asked was about, does business prestige matter? Business integrity matters. I don't know about prestige, but integrity matters. And if you come to the table with integrity and honesty and a little bit of humility, humble people don't think of themselves less. They don't think less of themselves. Humble people don't think less of themselves. They just think of themselves less. And so I think integrity, humility, and good work. You got to do a good job. Build prestige. But it's not the prestige. It's really the integrity that matters. Okay, so we have another Facebook top fan. Has a question about doing one-to-ones, and it's Somaya. Sorry if I'm mispronouncing your name. I've completed 740 one-to-ones. Jeez. Wow. In 730 days, going towards 750. So much has changed in business, thoughts, and how you see life. I'm not sure what the question is there, but I do have a suggestion. Remember, BNI is a marathon, not a sprint. I have seen people who have burned themselves out by almost over-engaging in networking. So take a deep breath. 740 one-to-ones in 730 days is a lot. If it's working for you, great. But what's equally important is not just the quantity of one-to-ones, which I've talked about and is important, but the quality of the one-to-ones and the relationships that develop out of that. If your network is a mile wide and only an inch deep, it'll never be very powerful. So I don't want to say anything that makes you less motivated. I'm impressed. That's unbelievable. Probably a record. I've never heard of any member doing so many one-to-ones. I'm proud of you. Well done. Now, focus a lot on going deep and building relationships with many of those people that you've met, because it's the deep relationships that'll make a difference. There's an old saying, it's not what you know, it's who you know. I don't think it's either. I don't think it's what you know or who you know. It's how well you know each other that really matters. Listen, I have some amazing contacts. I mean, amazing millionaires, billionaires in my database. But that doesn't really matter. What matters is, could I call them? Would they take my call? And if they took my call and I asked them for a favor, would they be willing to do the favor? That's what matters. It's not what you know or who you know, it's how well you know each other. And so, amazing job with doing one-to-ones. Now, focus on going deep with many of those people and spend time doing that. I think you'll be a lot more successful. And you may be already very, very successful. And I'm truly, truly impressed with what you've done. Chrissy, Chrissy's in the trades, and I find it hard to invite due to being in the office. Best ways to invite, any ideas? Yeah. So Chrissy, I think it's really important to understand that you need to diversify your networks. And I talk about this in many of my books. It's really important that you belong to something like a chamber of commerce where you get out and you mix and mingle with a lot of people, or you go to a service organization like Rotary Lions, Kiwanis, that you participate in some of those, or a trades organization, which you probably participate in. And so you want to be in 2 or 3 different kinds of groups. And BNI, of course, you want to be in a group like BNI. Don't go join 2 or 3 chambers. Don't go join 2 associations, 2 service clubs. You might be in more than one vocation association, depending on what it is you do exactly. But be in one of 2 or 3 different kinds of groups. Probably 3 is what I recommend. And then you're going to meet people, and that's where you have an opportunity to invite people. And of course, don't forget friends and family. There are people, and don't forget take a look at your contact database. I remember I was the second year of BNI. And I said to a friend of mine who was a BNI member, I said, I'm done. I got nobody else. I can't refer anyone else. And she really took me to school. She said, yes, you do. I said, no, I have nobody else. I have invited everyone I can think of. And I'm looking at, here we go. She said, no, I haven't. She said, you haven't. I said, oh, what do you mean? She said, open your checkbook. Now, some of you may not have checkbooks anymore, but open your checkbook. Today, it would be take a look online. Who are you paying for services? She said, have you done that? Have you gone through, and this is 1985, 86. Have you gone through your check register? Now, be an online register or a physical register, and looked at all the people you're paying, and have you invited them? Look at I'm going to really date myself now. Go through your Rolodex for the millennials and centennials on here. I'm not talking about an expensive watch. It was your contact database. It was a physical thing that you rolled and looked at names. Today it would be, go to your phone or go to your Outlook file, look at all your contacts. She told me to do that. And she said, come back next week and tell me how many people you found that you hadn't thought of. And I did what she said. And I came back and I was like, oh my goodness, I was so wrong. There's a boatload of people that as soon as I saw their name, I'm like, wow, how could I have forgotten to ask this person? So go through your database, think of friends and family, diversify your network, go to a chamber. A chamber is great because you get to meet a lot of people. And so you do those things, and Chrissy, I think you'll find that there are a lot of people that maybe you hadn't thought of, and you'll meet new people that you'll be able to invite in. Great questions. By the way, you guys, these are fantastic questions. I appreciate them. And please throw a couple more in there, please. All right, is it Zoo-Phi? ZU hyphen PHY. What's my greatest goal that involves transforming the world, and what would you say would be our possible contribution to make it a reality with you? So I would like to see BNI have 1 million members because so many people say BNI should be a household name. Everyone should know what BNI is. I agree. But when you have 291,000 members, you're not going to be a global household name. I think we start to become a global name when we're making a difference for 1 million people or more over time. And so I want to make a bigger difference for more people. In 2022, we passed over 12 million referrals. We generated over 18 billion, that's billion with a B, over 18 billion US dollars worth of thank you for closed business. I think we can do 100 billion in thank you for closed business for our members when we have 1 million members. And so that is what I've always wanted, is to make a difference for more people. And I've done that with a philosophy that may be unusual, and that is it's not just giver's gain, which I'll talk about when I wrap up, but it's that I've always thought that I, as an individual, may not be able to make a world of difference, but I can make a difference in the world. I may not be able to make a world of difference, but I can make a difference in the world. And I do that one person at a time. And if I can make a difference for one person, that one person might make a difference for two people. And those two people might make a difference for four people. Those four people might make a difference for eight people. And those eight might make a difference for 16 people. And it just started literally with 24 people in a BNI chapter in Arcadia, California, now called the Founders Chapter, which is, by the way, doing great. If you're on this, you're rocking it. They're still around, by the way. We're coming up on 38 years, and the Founders Chapter is still around. And so it's about making a difference for people. And if you can make a difference for one person, it becomes 2, 4, 8, 16, 32. And that's what I'd like. And anything you can do to help make to help change the way the world does business is certainly appreciated. Great question. Cameron, good to see you. As it appears the world is headed towards a recession, why is networking more important than ever? Listen, I'm sure I have an article on this, Dana, if you can find it and put it up. BNI has always done great in recessions because we've helped people in recessions. And I remember going to a Chamber of Commerce function many years ago, and I was talking to a real estate agent. And as soon as I started the conversation, real estate was in a deep recession in the United States. And as soon as I started talking to him, I'm like, wow, yeah, he's in real estate. He's going to tell me how bad things are. And he said to me, I'm having a great year. And I'm like, well, you're in real estate? You're having a great year? He said, yeah, actually, I'm having my best year ever. I'm like, is this your first year in real estate? He said, no, I've been in real estate a long time. I said, how could this possibly be your best year? And he reaches into his pocket and he pulls out a button. And he puts the button on, and the button says, I absolutely refuse to participate in a recession. And I said, that's it? You have a button? It says you refuse to participate. He said, no, it's about the mentality that goes behind the button. And I said, well, tell me about that. He said, look, everybody's out there whining and complaining about how bad business is. And while they're whining and complaining, I'm looking for opportunities. And I said, well, what opportunities are there? He said, there's two big ones. One, first-time home buyers. I'm going to first-time home buyers and I'm saying, hey, real estate's on sale. You couldn't have bought a house a year ago, but you might be able to afford one today because real estate has really dropped in price and you can afford it. And I'm selling to first-time home buyers. I said, okay, that makes sense. What's the other? He said, investors. I'm going to investors and I'm saying, hey, I got some commercial property here that it has dropped in price. It's available now. You cannot come to me 2 years from now and say, oh man, I should have bought that commercial property that you were telling me about. I didn't do it. You got to do it now. And he said, I'm selling more real estate than I've ever sold. And he said, walk around the room, talk to these real estate agents. I said, I have. He said, what are they talking about? I said, they're talking about how bad business is. He said, yeah, they're all complaining about how bad business is. And I'm looking for opportunities. I went out and I made buttons. They had the BNI logo on it that said, I refuse to participate in a recession. And BNI during a recession is more important than ever. You can save people's businesses by bringing them in to BNI. Dana just put in a podcast that I did on this very topic. I refuse to participate in a recession. And I think that addresses your question, Cameron. Thanks for asking that. We are most likely going back into a recession. And they happen on average, every 7 years. It's going to happen again. But BNI today more than ever, you need BNI. Today more than ever, you need your network. And that's what you tell people. Today more than ever, you need a network to help you get through difficult times. Okay, Eric says, what's the future of BNI? Seems to be only concentrated in India and not in Africa, where the potential is great. No, we're opening chapters in Africa. India is on fire. There's no question about that. They're one of our fastest growing countries. But Africa is absolutely growing and will continue to grow. You have to look at also the population. The population of India alone is over 1 billion people. And the middle class alone is like 300 million or so. So they have a massive population and a massive middle class. Even though it's a small percentage, it's a big number. And so, no, we are growing in Africa and in different parts of Africa. We are growing and can continue to grow. And so, have faith, and more importantly, invite people who this will benefit. Okay, Prasanna asks, how can an online advertising agency scale their business via networking? Well, look, you may be an online advertising agency, but referrals are still important. And so you participate in a BNI chapter by talking to people about the difference you can make and getting referrals for your online advertising. A friend of mine, Andy Bounds, talks about the afters. So when you're talking to members, and this applies to everyone, when you're talking to members and you're asking for referrals, don't talk about your products and services. Talk about what things will look like after you provide your product or service. What's it going to be like for the person? And sometimes people call it's the benefits, but that's a slightly different perspective. The benefits, the afters are what will their life be like after you do what you do. And so for an online advertising agency, you want to talk about what their business will be like after you do what you do. Because when you do something that will help their business grow, what's it going to look like after? So everyone think about the afters and talk about the afters. And when you are doing your weekly presentation, don't pick 3 afters to talk about. Pick 1. Just talk about one. And next week, talk about another one. And next week, another one. And the week after that, another one. So that over the course of a year, you've given a lot of content for people about your afters. I hope that answers your question. All right, we've got about 6 minutes. I'm going to wrap it up. If you have a question, please do it soon. Post your question soon. Dana just posted a blog that I recently did. People love to buy. They don't like to be sold to. And I talk about the afters in that. Suditi asks, how do we work on promoting and preserving BNI culture in a chapter that has grown sporadically? All right, so the way to build a healthy culture is to really focus on the core values. A chapter that lives the core values builds an amazing culture. Culture eats strategy for breakfast. It is the secret sauce for any successful organization. So one of the things that I would recommend is that you have the president and or the education coordinator for the next 8 weeks, talk about core values. And the way you do it, and by the way, up on Business Builders, I have 8 videos about core values. Why 8? Because there's 7 core values. I have one that talks about why core values are so important and how culture is the secret sauce. That's the first one. So the education coordinator can watch that video, share that information, maybe share the link on Business Builders with members. And then for the next 7 weeks, what I'd recommend is that the education coordinator pick one person in advance, not on the spot, and ask them, which core value, or actually I'd go to them and say, you really seem to live this one core value. Are you willing to talk about that core value? And when they say yes, then the education coordinator will stand up and say, last week we talked about why core values are so important and why it's important to build a culture. This week, we're going to start talking about each of the core values one at a time. And this week, I've asked so-and-so to talk about Giver's Gain and why that resonates with them and why that's so important to them as a member. And then let that member stand up and talk about that core value and how they try to apply it in the chapter and why, if everyone does that, they're going to have a more successful chapter. And then over the course of 8 weeks, 2 months, you start to focus on culture. And with that focus, you change things. I started my presentation today saying that leadership is about influence. It's about influencing other people. You want to influence culture? Talk about core values. Talk about it in a positive way. Have the members talk about core values. If there's enough time after the person talks about it, then have somebody else share. What do you love about that core value? What do you love about that core value? Stay within your time frame, but every week for 8 weeks. Do that, and that's the beginning of a stronger culture in a chapter. Great question. Glad you asked it. Shantanu, how do you manage to follow up after a one-to-one? However you prefer to follow up. In other words, an email, a phone call, particularly if you've promised them something. If in a one-to-one you promised an introduction to somebody, do it. Do it that day. Don't wait no longer than 24 hours. You follow up almost immediately. If you promise to send them information, maybe they asked for information about you, send it immediately. Maybe they've asked for an article that you discussed, send them the link immediately. But you follow up quickly. And one of the things that I recommend is that when you do a one-to-one, make sure that there are reasons to follow up. In the conversation, hey, I've got a link that I can send you, or I think I can make an introduction. You make those introductions quickly. The best way to build long-term relationships with other business professionals is to help them. If you can find a way to help somebody, you're going to build a long-term relationship. By the way, one of the things that I recommend in doing one-to-ones is to use the GAINS exchange. GAINS exchange stands for goals, accomplishments, interests, networks, and skills. Dana can put up a post about the GAINS exchange, where I've talked about why that's so important. I know I've done a number of podcasts on that topic. All right. We are almost out of time. I'm going to take one more question, and then I'm going to wrap up. And in the meantime, Dana will throw up the GAINS exchange. Rahman says, I am Rahman from India. How can we contribute to society through BNI? So I back in 1998, my late wife and I created a foundation, the BNI Foundation. And I think one of the ways we all contribute is if we make our local economies stronger, we contribute to society. And so if we bring in other business people in the community, we contribute to society and the success of the community. And as I was saying, my late wife and I started a foundation, the BNI Foundation, and one of the projects there is Business Voices. And Business Voices is about actually doing activities that will help the community. And so if you're not familiar with the BNI Foundation or Business Voices, go to bnifoundation.org. Dana just put the link in there. Go to bnifoundation.org and you can find out more information. You want to change society. You may not make a world of difference. You can make a difference in the world. You do that by helping people, bring them into BNI so you have stronger communities economically. And then you do things, charitable work. I think charitable work is important, and BNI's focus is children and education. Children represent 20% of the world's population, but they're 100% of our future. And that's our focus with the BNI Foundation. Okay, we, if possible, may answer some of the unanswered questions, if at all possible, throughout the day. Dana, one more time, could you put the link for the BNI convention? We have a convention going on in Singapore. It's going to be awesome. I'm going to be doing another Ask Ivan next month live, and it's going to be in person, and we're going to have online. And we're going to have questions from the people in the audience, and we have people who are online who ask questions, and we'll bounce back and forth between the questions, and I'm going to do this all over again. Tell your members, come to the convention and do this. And the next time you see another Ask Ivan, please let them know to come to the Ask Ivan. I love pouring into members and helping them be successful. Let me wrap up with two other things. I want to thank you for being here, for taking an hour of your time to be here with me and to ask such fantastic questions. And I want to thank Dana, who everybody needs a Dana. Dana's been incredible. Dana, I appreciate you. You've helped a great deal. I really believe, these are my parting thoughts, that BNI is a beacon of hope in a sea of fear. That's particularly true as we move into a recession. And we're a beacon of hope because of our principal core value of giver's gain. And giver's gain is more than a phrase to me. It's a way of living one's life. It's a perspective to view and interact with the world. It's an attitude, not an expectation. And when it's applied properly, it will change your life. And when it changes enough lives, it'll change the world. I want to thank all of you for being here today. It's been great talking to you. We will do another Ask Ivan live. Bye, everyone. And come back and check out all the posts that we do. I have some good content up here. Bye, everyone. Love to all of you.